Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining today's webinar. My name is Luzanne Lottering. I'm the marketing manager here at Cardiolog Analytics, and I'm joined today by Microsoft MVP and SharePoint expert Göran Husman, and I will go ahead and kick things off. Today's webinar is on analytics to optimize performance of Microsoft Teams. So let's get started with a bit of housekeeping. So this webinar is being recorded. If you want to share this with a colleague, we'll go ahead and send an email with the recording after today's session. And of course, if you have any questions, please send them through the questions box within the GoToWebinar panel, and we can leave some time towards the end for Q&A. You can also connect with us on Twitter with the Twitter handle @Cardiolog or Göran's Twitter handle @GHusman. In regards to the agenda for today's webinar, we will start out with a very short introduction. I will talk a bit about Cardiolog Analytics and who we are, and then Göran will go ahead and explain how to analyze usage of Teams with the standard analytics. And then I will go over our tool and walk you through how you can track usage and productivity in Teams and pinpoint inactive teams and users and what their activity is in Teams, and then how to use those insights in order to boost productivity, to boost consumption, support inactive Teams users, as well as encourage greater collaboration in Teams. And then again at the end, we'll take some Q&A, so please continue to feel free to send your questions throughout the course of the presentation. So let me start with a brief introduction. Over the past 15 years, Cardiolog Analytics has been focused on analytics and engagement designed for SharePoint, Teams, and Office 365. So our flagship solution is Cardiolog Analytics, and it's built specifically for internal platforms, including all versions of SharePoint from 2010 up to 2019, as well as SharePoint Online, Microsoft Teams, OneDrive, Exchange, Yammer. That our solution is available both on-prem and as a SaaS version based on Power BI. Our goal is to help our customers constantly improve Office 365 based on how it's being used. So in regards to that, there are 4 pillars that we talk to customers about. The first one is monitor, which is tracking the usage within SharePoint and Teams and OneDrive and Exchange. And the second pillar is engaging users, asking them what their needs are, what their pain points are, and what's not working for them. And then the next pillar is to enhance. The whole point is that we want to make sure that we are constantly improving SharePoint and Teams and so on based on those first 2 pillars. So the idea is to have actionable metrics, which will then allow us to constantly make Office 365 platforms better for our users. And then finally, the last pillar is securing Office 365 by enforcing permissions and access, identifying breaches of information, and securing confidential data. So now I'll go ahead and hand things over to Göran, who will introduce himself and jump into the presentation.
Thank you, Luzanne.
Göran, we are very excited to hear what you have to tell us.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm a SharePoint nerd, basically. I've been working a lot with Exchange before SharePoint, but I've been working with SharePoint since its first release in 2001, and of course has drifted along to Microsoft 365 several years ago, and that's where I work now solely, actually. I've also written some SharePoint books and an Exchange book, but I'm a I call myself a solution architect. I'm not a developer, but I'm focusing on how to use the collaboration tools with the built-in standard functionality that you can find in Microsoft 365. I'm also the founder of a consulting company that I founded in 2001. We're a small company, just 6 people, so I will have that as a demo environment as well as another bigger one that I can only show parts of because I don't want to show something secret. I'm also a Microsoft trainer. So the first question, if you have a lot of teams, is if you're an administrator, you start thinking, can I get a list of all the Microsoft teams? And then you realize that every Microsoft team has a Microsoft 365 group associated. So why not count simply the Microsoft 365 groups? That's easy because you can do that in the 365 admin portal. You can just list all 365 groups. But the problem is, or the challenge, I should say, is that also regular SharePoint team sites are also associated with Microsoft 365 groups. So you can't just count 365 groups because it's a mix of Microsoft Teams and just regular team sites. So how do we do it? Well, we have a report I'm going to show you in just a minute that's available in the Teams admin portal that you can do that kind of report, but that's only going to show you information the maximum last 90 days. So you will simply not get older teams that hasn't been used, and that's super interesting because teams that is not being used should maybe be deleted. So you really would like to find them. So what you have to do today, maybe that's going to change in the future, is to run a PowerShell script. And I've listed a link to such a PowerShell script that you can run. And please note that you need to be Office 365 admin in order to run this PowerShell script. So what I'm basically saying, it's not really easy to find out all your Microsoft Teams, even though you actually would benefit a lot from that. So let's dive into these kinds of reports that you can create. There is something called Teams Admin Portal, and I'm going to show you that now. I'm going to start by showing you a little bigger one, and then I'm going to switch to my own tenant. So we have Teams here. And that team, this is the Teams admin portal I talked about just a minute ago. So you have lots of settings here, and I don't want to spend time investigating them, but if you are responsible for teams in your organization, you should really try to dive into them and learn what you can do and find out here. So what I'm going to focus on is the analytics and reports. And the reports is basically a bunch of different information or types of reports. And then you can also select a date or the range really. So 7, 30 or 90 days. So for example, let's start with something simple. What kind of apps do my attendees, my team users use in Microsoft Teams? So since this is a big organization, I stick to just the last 7 days here. So I'll just run the report, wait for the result, and then I find this one. I don't want to show you everything because there is more information below that I don't want you to see. But what we can see here is that we have 10,154 active users on Microsoft apps, and then we have other apps from other parties, maybe Dropbox or Jira or something like that. That's also being used. And by the way, maybe this is not so sensitive, so I can scroll down actually. So we can see the, for example, Adobe Creative Cloud has a peak there with just one user, but Azure Boards is 12 and so on. So we can find out how people are using Teams, not only for chatting and communicating, but also to take advantage of the apps you can run in Teams. So let's dive into something else then. The one with PSTN, these are for telephone calls, for public telephone networks. So if you have a connection to a telephone network from Microsoft Teams and your 365 environment, you may need or at least learn how that is used. So because you maybe are paying a fee based on the usage from your user when they try to call, for example, a mobile phone using Microsoft Teams. So I'll skip these. But this one is a bit interesting. This is what kind of devices are being used. And I'm gonna switch to 30 days here just to get more info. And we can see now, we can see now that Windows is definitely the most popular device, but we also have some Macs there. We have some iPhones and some Androids. There are completely no Chrome iOS computers or Windows Phone or Linux here. So this is basically a Windows organization that also use iPhones as the usage. If you would like to have that exported and see all the names and who is using what device, you can simply create a download and export to a CSV file so you can do more analyzing later on. By the way, just note that these statistics we see here is a bit delayed from the actual use. So it's typically 24 hours, sometimes 48 hours that's back that you can see. So if somebody is doing something today, you won't see it until 1 or maybe 2 days from now. Let's see if we have any users that is running team live events. That's also interesting, and just skip that. I can also search for a specific user if I want to just check out that person. And then let's look what we can find out here. And we'll see that in August we had a peak with about 1,000 live events running. Total views, number of views, that was a bit less. And you see it's not something that is occurring every day. So typically there are probably some information that maybe an organization, the complete organization or a specific department want to share with their colleagues. Then we come to even more interesting. Now it's, you remember what I had in the PowerPoint slide? I said you can list the teams, but only up to 90 days. This is what you use. So if you say, I want to see all the teams used the last 90 days, then I will have this view. And then there is information at the bottom, but I'm not going to show you that. But then I can see now that we have, and that's the complete number of teams that has been used in 90 days is listed here. So for example, we had 392,000 meetings organized, or we had 1.9 million reactions, people doing smileys or thumbs up or something like that. And then I can go to a specific date and see how many reactions did we have that day, or I can go down and see how many active channels did we have that day, and so on. And by the way, if you have a bigger screen, so you can expand this one, it will be easier to simply to check the teams, the statistics. So it's kind of nice, and it's good that you can download and export this, so you can do it, do a more uh, detailed analysis if you need to. But still, it's a bit tricky because it's only the teams used in the latest 90 days. And then maybe you want to see how your users are using Teams. So I'll skip just to 7 days because there are so many. So during the last 7 days, we had about 3.4 million chat messages. We had 44,600 channel messages and so on. And if you look at this specific date, the September 1st, it was 685,000 chat messages and so on. So, and then I'm just not avoiding going down, because then you can look at a specific user and see how much participation they did during these 7 days, which is a way of finding out. If it's 0 for everyone, then you know that nobody's using it. If it's 0 for just a few people, then you should maybe talk to these people. I'm going to switch to my other more not so sensitive Teams analytics, and this is in my own company, Human Data. So if I run the same user activities here and say the last 90 days, I can actually show you the users in this case. So we see that it is going up and down, and then we had a long period when we didn't have anything, and that is called vacation in Swedish. And then we can go down and see, for example, Jenny, she has not been giving or posting any messages or replies or anything during this time. She had been posting a chat messages 6 times, but she seems to be very inactive, and maybe we should have a talk with her. Beatrice, on the other hand, she seems to be more active, and so on. So we can scroll down, and again, if we need, we can do a download. So that's the kind of global reports you can have as an 365 tenant admin administrator. So what do you do if you're not one of these rather few admins for 365 admins, and you want to find out about your teams, or at least the teams you're a member of? So I'm going back to my slide. So this is a summary just for you, so you don't have to take notes. So the teams that you have access to, not necessarily owning, but have access to, you can find out a lot of information as well. I'm going to show you that as well. We'll take this one, or I'm actually going to switch to my Microsoft Teams here. So this is my Teams app. It also works, by the way, in the web app, if you're wondering. So at the bottom here, we have this settings, manage teams. If we click that one, we can see, I can see all the teams I have access to. So I see a list here, and I can see, for example, that that team has, I am a member of that team. It's 34 people invited to that team, and it's a public team. If it's the padlock, it's a private one, but that globe shows it's a public one. So that is one way of seeing the list of teams you have. But if you want to see the analytics, you click on that one. Then you will see some more statistics or analytics. So for example, we can see that this after work team where we talk and drink beer and so on, it only had 2 active users. So last period here, the period is listed there, 7 days. So we can see that maybe it's not that popular and so on. We can see how many people, if we have any guests and so on. So it gives us a good idea about how teams are used that you have access to. But if you want to see a specific team, so let's say we have a team here for people who likes to play board games, physical games, not computer games. It is called H&M Board Games. And I want to see how that one is used. I'm not the owner of that team, so, but I can find out anyway. I just point, not click on the logo. And then there is no setting here, by the way, but don't let that discourage you. So when you just click, for example, the members, and then you will see the analytics showing up. So now I can see for the last 7 days, maybe we can increase that to 90 days instead. So we can see we have 123 users. We have 7 apps installed in that team, but it has been rather low activity on that one. But we can see the statistic or a timeline here. So we see we had like 7 users September 4th and so on. It has not been any meetings there. Which is a bit surprising because this is about maybe we could have like meeting and planning work and so on. It should show up here. So if we go back to this slide again, so that was for all teams you have access, the first one, and then I showed you how to find out information about a specific team. So simply open that team and then open the settings, or if you don't see that, click on the members and then look at the analytics to find out about the usage. You can also do some filtering here if we go back to that one. So this is for all channels. Maybe you have multiple channels and you want to see what about events, for example, that channel. So you can select a specific channel and that shows it. Maybe this team is not being used that much. So you get this idea about the usage, but you're not really super sure. And what you would really like to have is, of course, a way of notifying the team's owners or something and say, hey guys, do you need some help to start using this, your team or so? And that is something Lausanne will show you later on how to do that. Yeah, back to the slide again. And then do you have channels that is not used? Okay, once again, you open that specific team and then you click channels. You can see here, you don't actually click analytics, you click channels, and that will give you an idea. So if we go to teams here, and then I click on channel, not channel settings, hello. And let's see now, come on please. So I click on channels here instead of analytics that I just showed you, and I can see here the last activity. When was that used? And you see it's in March. This one is in May. So maybe the ones that was created in March, maybe we could simply delete them or collect all that information in multiple channels into one or something like that, because it doesn't seem to be used the way the owner probably wanted to do it. back then. You could also see if it was a private or standard one. So that gives you an idea. So this is actually what is available for Teams admin or an owner of a team or but if you're really skilled on PowerShell, then of course you can find out more information, like all the teams you have, and you can see more information about every team, or you can list teams that is owned have the same owner, so all the owners that Anna or the teams that Anna owns and so on. So this is not much, even though it is important and it's good. Its question is it good enough? I think you will, in many cases, you are probably saying that I would like to have some more information about my teams, how they are used and so on. So we would like an easy way to list all the teams, including their owner. And we would also like to see what members are not using. They are invited to teams, but they don't use that team. So maybe they need some kind of encouragement or explanation, or we simply should remove them from that team. Why be a member of a team if you don't use it? It's also interesting to find out who is the most active users. You can basically find out that by doing like we saw before, we saw the team's user activities, and if we do an export, we can sort and find out who is the most active. But that's for all the teams that is exported. So maybe you should have a better way of finding out statistics about that. And also inactive teams, even though you can find it out by investigating and looking, it's not really super easy to do it. And what we really lack is a way of engaging team members, explaining what the team is used for and how they should behave in that team and what's in it for them, basically. And better statistics, of course. For security reason, it's also interesting to know what kind of content is being shared. Is it some maybe sensitive information, maybe even secret document or something? That would be nice to find out, and also to find out what of these has been accessed. So we are basically missing some information here, but luckily there is a solution. Correct, Luzanne?
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that, Göran. Well, it was not only interesting, but very helpful information. And based on that, I would like to hop into our demo environment so I can now show the Cardiolog Analytics Teams reports that we have that are missing from the standalone analytics. So let me go ahead and share my screen again. So like I said, I would like to show the analytics that Cardiolog Analytics can provide in terms of teams that are missing from what Göran has just showed you. So Cardiolog Analytics SaaS reports for teams provide valuable insights into how users in your organization are using teams. So your organization can use information from the reports to better understand usage patterns and obviously to help make business decisions and focus training and communication efforts. So with Cardiolog Analytics SaaS reports for teams, you can easily see how many people in your business are communicating through Teams channels versus private chats, and also the kinds of devices they use to connect to Teams, to identify who your champions are, to see which apps are being used, as well as which content is being shared and more. So let's hop into a couple of our dashboards so I can show you these reports. So first of all, if we look here at Teams usage overview, the Teams usage overview report gives you an overview of the usage activity in Teams, including the number of active users and inactive users. So you can obviously quickly see how many users across your organization are using Teams To communicate and to collaborate, you can view usage information for teams, including the number of members, number of channels and messages in each team. So let's look a little bit closer. We can see the total number of teams created within a selected date range, the average number of channels created per team within the selected range, the number of unique users who performed an action in teams during the selected date range, and that includes engaged in chat, in a channel, communicated via private chat message, participated in calls or meetings. And then also very important, you can see the active teams. So this meter displays the percentage of teams with at least one channel message during the selected time frame. And that's how you can see how many active and inactive users there are in each team. And the whole point is to know which teams, obviously in this case, need more training and need more support based on this. And then the top teams table visual that you can see here tells us which teams are more active, and you can filter that by the number of members, the number of channels, contributors, messages, replies, likes, really any data that you are curious about to see which teams are more active or more inactive if we scroll further down. And obviously those who are more inactive, those are my teams who need more training. Those are the teams I want to reach out to and give them more support. What's also really nice here is you can see, like I said, who your top teams are and also how active each top team is. And that gives a really good benchmark for a productive or what a successful team looks like for you. And something really neat is the last activity date. So if they did not respond in the last 30 days, for example, if they weren't active in the last 30 days, you can maybe archive those teams, or that's how you know which teams need more training. So if I hop over to engagement overview, this report gives you insights into which users in your organization are engaged with teams, the kind of devices they use to connect to teams, the types of activities they perform in teams, and it contains also a series of visuals ready to be filtered really quickly by department, by office, to help you further understand which users are communicating through channel messages and private chat messages, and who's participating in meetings and calls, and who are those users sharing content and using apps in Teams. So again, if I go into a little bit more detail, if we look here at active versus inactive users, this visual indicates the ratio of active versus inactive users during a selected date range. And the bar graph at the bottom here indicates the trends in this ratio over time. Again, the active users, just to break it down, the number of unique users who performed an action in Teams during the selected date range once again, and or those who engage in a chat, in a channel, or even those who communicated via private chat messages, or even participated in a call or meeting. Those will all fall under active users. Now, my inactive users would be those number of unique users who did not perform any action in Teams during this selected date range. I also want us to look at team messages versus private chat messages. So this pie chart details the amount of messages that are posted in Teams channels and also the amount of messages in private chats during, again, the selected date range. So this usage report shows that users are primarily using Teams for private chats. So in this example, you may want to review your team scenarios because you can clearly see that the users are chatting outside of these initial teams and channels they were set up. So the whole point of the analytics is to use this information, use these insights, and take action to get the user behavior that you want. Also, if we look at access type, for example, this pie chart details the amount of times each device was used to connect to Teams. So say, for example, you see that not many users are using this specific device to access Teams. It obviously now indicates to me that users are not sure how to do so with this device. So now I know as an organization that Maybe it will help if we post step-by-step installation instructions for that specific device in a channel, and that may help to drive usage of a wider device range, meaning more users will actually actively use Teams to be productive and to be collaborative. If we quickly look here at meetings, this visual identifies the total number of meetings scheduled within the selected date range, and the line graph in the background indicates the trends in the volume of meetings over time, which is really great. The same for calls, the total number of calls that users participated in. And then also if we look here at apps, this visual identifies the total number of apps that have been added to Teams within that date range. And the line graph in the background indicates the trends in the number of apps added to Teams over time. So that's really great in terms of content to understand. Speaking of content, if we look at content being shared, this line graph indicates trends in the number of content items shared in Teams over time, and that would be added to tabs or posted as an attachment in a channel message. So you can also filter all of this by office. You can filter it by department. And the whole point of filtering by office and department to really understand and to get those insights on how different locations or how different groups are using Teams, and then also what their level of activity looks like, to get really good indication of activity in Teams and where there's a lack of activity, where you need to put your focus. So again, by having these valuable insights, you can now reach out to your users to change their user behavior in order for them to be more productive and more collaborative. If I hop into team overview, this report highlights the activity within a specific team. So including the number of members, the number of channels, the top contributors as well, and also popular threads. And it contains several visuals ready to be quickly filtered by team, be filtered by date. So you can quickly see how those users in your team are using the platform in order to communicate and in order to collaborate. So if we look, for example, here at activity by date, this chart compares the number of active users and inactive users, calls, messages, channel messages over the selected date range. And this helps us to really understand what exactly the activity in Teams entail. If we look at activity by department just below, this chart includes a breakdown of how many channel messages and private chat messages and calls and meetings your users have created according to their department over the selected date range. And then if we hop over to top contributor, this is the next thing I wanted to show you. Really, really neat. This top contributor table displays the top contributors ranked by the number of threads started. So just again, a contributor is a user who created at least one message. And this includes columns such as username, obviously, the number of conversations started by the listed user during the selected date range, channel messages, replies, attachments, and so on. What is really neat is that this dashboard can be filtered by team. Let me just show you. You can select which team you want to filter it by. It can be filtered by channel, and you'll see this on many of the dashboards. And also, obviously, very important, date, because that's how you're able to track if there's improvement. And the whole point is so that we can, for example, choose what exactly we want to report on. If I hop over to channel overview, this report highlights the activity within a specific team channel, including things such as the number of messages, attachments, and apps used. Also, the top contributors and top messages. On the side, you can see the total number of apps added to a selected team channel. We can look at the total number of content items added to tabs in the selected team channel, and also attachments, the total number of attachments that have been posted in messages in the selected channel within the selected date range. And you can see that this is really valuable information to have to really understand not only the user's activity, but what does that activity entail? Does that mean that they are just chatting, or are they actually being productive and collaborative? And this you can see in terms of apps and content and attachments being used, and not just chatting and calling. This report is really neat report, and it identifies the top champions who are essential to driving awareness, driving adoption, and education in your organization. A champion, for example, is a person primarily motivated by helping others, so who is interested in teams and helping other employees use it in alignment with your best practices. And this report contains several visuals ready to be quickly filtered by date, by team, by channel, or user attributes such as office or department. The whole point of this is so you can quickly see which users are most active and the interactions between them. So a little bit more about this particular dashboard is the fact that you can see down to user level. And like I said, the whole point of having this information is so you can drive adoption by finding out who these influential users are, these champions are. To give some examples how you could do so, you can maybe reach out to them. You can invite them to, for example, you see Rebecca and Violet and Abram are quite influential users. So you invite them to share some tips, to host a quick session, to explain some how-tos on using Teams, and that will motivate and support those other inactive users, the ones who did not make it to the top of this list. Also, we can see things such as how many times each member has been mentioned in Teams channels during a selected date range. And then if I hop over to my influential content dashboard, this report gives you insights into which content users in your organization are engaged with in Teams. And it contains a series of visuals, again, that's ready to be quickly filtered by team, by channel, by date range. And that will help you understand how valuable your users feel your content is, which topics are most popular, which content is being shared, and which teams and channels are being mentioned the most. So if we look here at top apps being used in team channels within the selected date range, we look also at content shared in tabs. So the line graph here, just to let you know, indicates the trends in the number of content items added to tabs over time. This table lists the content items added to tabs in the selected team and channel. For each team and channel, to summarize this, you can see if they are sharing content, if they are using apps. So why would we want to know that? So say, for example, a customer or an organization wants to give training for teams, and we know that a specific team is not using an app, for example. It might be because they don't know that it's a functionality. So when we train, this dashboard and all these insights give us a really good indication of where to put our focus. And again, this can be filtered by team, it can be filtered by channel, it can be filtered by date. But we have all these really valuable insights. You know what's happening in terms of which users are active, which users are not active. What are they sharing? Are they active because they're making calls? Are they active because they are chatting? And this informs you of what's going on, but it doesn't drive the activity. It doesn't drive user behavior. It doesn't drive adoption. So in order to do that, you need a way to reach out to these users, a way to use this data and use these insights to actually take action. So say, for example, I'm just opening up Cardiolog Engage, and the point of Cardiolog Engage is to further engage those end users. And just to let you know that everything here in Cardiolog Engaged is based on this information that we captured with Cardiolog Analytics for Teams. So say, for example, I have seen in the data that there are users who did not interact with Microsoft Teams. I've just shown you the data. Maybe ever, or we saw the last activity date. So let's say the last activity date was 30 days. They didn't take any action in Teams in the last 30 days. So now I know this, but how can I actually change their user behavior with Engage? So I will send a very targeted message based on the insights, based on the data to this very specific audience. I can send them a message saying, I noticed you haven't been active in Teams. Here's a link back to Teams. Here is a step-by-step installation instructions. I've noticed that you have this type of device and you are not active in Teams on this device. So it really depends on what you read in the data, and according to that, you take action. Maybe you notice that there are users who belong to a specific team, let's say the marketing team, um, who is really lagging in terms of activity. They are at the bottom of the top teams. So I want to send a message to all of my users who belong to this very specific audience, this very specific team, and send them a message with a reminder about a file they have to collaborate on, or a new app that they have access to actually start using. So it's all about taking action based on this data. So how will this message, this engagement, get through to my users? So you can choose your channel. Maybe, especially now that a lot of people are working remotely, or maybe they're in the sales team and they're out in the field, a quick text message might be the best channel for those specific users. Or maybe they are very active in SharePoint, but not in Teams. I can send them a quick message that will appear as a pop-up right within the SharePoint page. Maybe it will appear as a header or footer with a link back to Teams, or a reminder about Teams training, or a reminder about a file in Teams that has been shared that they have to go check out. Maybe quick email. Or what is better than getting them to start using the Teams platform than sending them a message right within Teams? So you can send them a message to start getting them used to Teams, using Teams, and sending them small tasks to do in order for them to be more active in Teams and slowly being also more productive and more collaborative in Teams. So this message, for example, can say something such as, I've noticed that you haven't been active in Teams in the last month or in the last 2 weeks. Please give me some feedback as to why that is. So what further informs you on top of this brilliant data that you get from Cardiolog Analytics, Teams reports, is also getting direct feedback from the users based on this data. So you can ask the users why they are not active, and this will truly inform your training and truly inform you how to support your users. So they can, the call to action in this case will be an open question, but maybe you want to invite them to Teams training, or you just want to send them a reminder about something. So in that case, there will be no call to action. So the whole point is sending the right message at the right time to the right user. So what is the right time? Either immediately, or I can schedule it to be sent at a specific date or time, whether it's my time or the user's time zone. Or what's really neat, it can be triggered based on their behavior in SharePoint. So when they are scrolling down a specific page or viewing a specific page, obviously in that moment they are focused, they are engaged. So what better time for this pop-up to appear with this reminder about a file in Teams they have to collaborate on, or a reminder about a policy that was sent to them at Teams, or a reminder about the fact that they have access to Teams and that they can start using Teams to have their meetings in Teams. Whatever the case may be, based on the data, you can send to your users at the right time in order to drive the user behavior that you want. And the analytics, together with the engagement, that's really the game changer. The use of these two solutions together is the sweet spot for getting all this valuable information and insights based on the user behavior and the user activity, and being able to take action, because without action there will be no change. So that is really what I wanted to show you today. So that will leave us with a little bit of time to take some questions. So if anyone has any questions, please do send those through to the GoToWebinar questions box.
Meanwhile, Lusanne, can I just
Yes.
say I really like the way we not only can find out about things we need to check, like inactive users or teams or channels, but also that you are so smart way of using that information for sending up feedback or questions or whatever you need to do to get them going. So that's really what I like about your application, that it's not only statistics, it's a follow-up that is smart, really makes a difference.
Exactly. That is the game changer, the fact that you are actually able to do something with this information.
Exactly.
So I have a couple of questions here. I see 3 questions. I see we still have a couple of minutes, so I'll take these questions. I have a question here from Mark. Mark asked, do you have a trial? So yes, Mark, we do have a trial. We actually have a free trial and also a proof of concept for those who want maybe a longer evaluation or they want to try more features versus the free trial that's quite limited. And you can contact us. On the next slide, we'll give you contact details, so you can contact us and we'll discuss that with you further. I also have a question here from Lucas. Lucas wants to know if the solutions are available for purchase in AppSource. Yes, Lucas. So both the solutions I actually showed you today, the analytics as well as the engagement solutions, are available in AppSource under apps, that is. And then I see a last question from Ramesh. Ramesh wants to know, does it take a long time to deploy? That's actually a really good question. So what's really neat about this tool, it's designed for SharePoint and it's designed for Microsoft Teams. So there's really no need for customization when you want to deploy. Really, truly, with our setup wizard, you can get it up and running within an hour or two and already start to collect data. So those are the only questions that I see. So let's just go ahead and wrap up our session today. First of all, a huge thank you to you, Göran, for joining us today and sharing your expertise and all the valuable information about analytics that you also shared with us. We invite you to visit us at cardiologanalytics.com. This is also where you will go if you want to find more details about that free trial, or you can tweet us at cardiolog or Göran at Husman, or you can join our readers at blog.intlock.com. For more information, please contact us at info@intlock.com, or you can contact Göran at
humandata.se.
Please reach out to us directly, and we thank you very much for your time. We hope that you learned a lot during this webinar, and we look forward to hearing from all of you hopefully after this. Thank you very much. And again, a big thank you to you all who joined, and also Göran, who shared his expertise with us today. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.
Yeah, I also want to thank everyone who attended. I want to thank you, Lusanne, to giving me a chance to talk about my favorite topic, Microsoft Teams. Thank you all.
Absolutely. We'll do this again, Göran. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.